Sometimes people ask me what I do on my free time or during my holiday, and I tell them I spin wool, but they don't understand, which is a bit weird because I find that Norway is a bit of a traditional country when it comes to like handcrafts, and there's a long tradition, like a spinning tradition here, but I guess it's dying out. Like, people don't understand why. Like, look at this, it's so much fun. And basically, like, farmers throw this away. Like, this was basically free. I don't get it. So it's been a few weeks since my previous video, and during that time I've actually had 1 week holiday. I can say immediately that I feel like a lot has happened since then. To begin with, I finished carding all of my wool. That's a small win. It was a milestone. This wool has been in my house for like over a year, so it's nice to just get it processed. Now, during that time, I also figured out what to do with my antique spinning wheel. And of course, I'm going to keep it. But I'm also getting a new spinning wheel. Hear me out. My antique wheel deserves to be fixed. It's otherwise a perfect wheel. It just needs a few adjustments and a little bit of extra care, but it needs to be done in its own time and it needs to be done right. So I guess what my issue was is that I have all these projects that I want to get to, but I can't do them until this wheel is fixed. But I solve that now by getting the wheel that allows me to do all the projects I want to do. And then I can just continue with that side of my hobby on the side while I slowly try to restore my antique wheel. And it's much easier to do this during the summertime when you can do woodwork outside in a well ventilated area. It's just a hassle to do it now during the winter time, and I felt like it's going to be months before I can get to any useful spinning, and that bothered me. But now that I've ordered a new wheel. I can have both and I can enjoy both, and I don't need to give up or sell or give away this antique wheel. So that's my solution. Long story short, I ordered a new Kromsky wheel. I ordered the unlacquered version for the same reason that I like treating my wooden items, and I think that would be a lot of fun. I have a bunch of different colored bets that I can use. I haven't decided yet what it's gonna be, but I have lots of things that I can use with it. I'm really going for a traditional look, so it will most likely be just one color, and then either I'll use what's it called, uh, metal wool to give it a little bit more depth, and then I'll end up probably finishing it with beeswax. That's my goal. I haven't gotten the wheel yet. I ordered it about a week ago, and I think it's arriving in about 1 or 2 weeks, and I have to go pick it up and make the time to show you guys. I mean, I have never spent so much money on a single thing for a hobby. It's not cheap, but I really enjoy it. So there you go. So now the question is, what am I even gonna do with all this yarn? I think I want to make like a dress coat, like something similar to like a Chanel inspired. I guess they're called coats. I'll put a picture here. And I want it to be white. I don't want to color it at all. Only the edges, either there will be like some white or even some yellow or natural color so that it looks a bit tailored. And if I get really ambitious, I may even line it, but I don't know how to sew. And that's what makes it exciting. Like all of my projects, they're about learning something new. And if I mess it up, well, whatever. I'll figure it out. So that's my plan for all of this wool. But I don't like to limit myself. Like I take it one step at a time. I may do that, but I'm also eyeing a Fair Isle sweater. I think they look so beautiful, especially if I manage to dye the yarn myself with natural dyes. But to be honest, I'm not quite sure how light fast they are. I mean, it's a lot of color work. And imagine you do all of that and then it just fades out. Like that would be really sad. But we'll see. What I do have and I want to use with this wool that I have carded, I have a bunch of onion skins. I have another bag like this. And if I treat it correctly, I can get a yellow, an orange, and a green from this. But I'm not quite sure this is enough. But either way, I'm going to use what I have to dye a portion of the wool that I have. And I think I'll dye it before I spin it. I think that's what I will end up doing because the wheel, it hasn't arrived yet. And before I can even start using it, I need to treat it, surface treat it. So this is like a great side project to do while I'm waiting. So look forward to this video. I've never dyed with onions. I've dyed with some of the other acid dyes, and they're great. Like the acid dyes, like they're so easy to handle, but I think that the color looks a bit artificial. Like I really enjoy the natural dyes. They're sometimes a bit muted, but that's what makes them nice. We'll see. I mentioned I was on holiday and I had some visitors from abroad, and during that time we went to a thrift store and I found something. Now, I feel like all the videos I'm making, I'm talking about how I failed at my New Year's resolution. I said I wasn't gonna buy more stuff, but I've been looking for this one particular thing for years now. Or not years, maybe like 1.5 years. And you can get them from many places, but they're just expensive or they're made out of plastic. And I really wanted a wooden one for obvious reasons. Yeah, let me show you what I got. I got a small, I guess, table weaving contraption. So it comes with already this setup here, somebody's abandoned work, and then with another extra one. And they're like I would consider this to be new. Like if I went to the store and I got this, I would think that it's new. And maybe it is, but I got it in a secondhand or secondhand shop. And it was 100 chrono, which means I don't know, something around a bit less than $10. It's really inexpensive. Like you can get something like this new from a shop for probably 5 times the price. And this is great because I have yarn specifically for a project. I want to weave belt. I have experience with card weaving, and that's great. But the specific belt I want to make, you need one of these. I don't even know the English name anymore. Anyway, so this was really inexpensive, and I just had to get it because I had been looking even for antique ones, and they were really expensive, plus the shipping and everything. And this I just picked up, so I was really happy to find this, and I will have multiple uses for this. Like, I can do the belt, plus, also want to weave larger pieces of fabric, and this is a great way to start. I don't think I would ever get one of those larger weaving tables or like stands, but this is good enough. This is good enough. So I'm happy I found that, and there will be a video at some point with this one. It was a really good find. But what else have I been up to? Well, I've been trying to destash. So I am really late on the Sophie scarf game. I had a bunch of yarn leftovers. It's fingering weight yarn and some mohair. I'm currently in the orange and gold color. I had this much left over, which is, I think it's kind of nice to use it like this. When you have a small scarf like this, like I've never knitted this pattern before, I think it's nice to have different colors because when you tie it and then there's like a contrast color and then a main color, maybe even another color, I think it's more interesting. But that's just me. Like I'm a colorful person. I like mixing colors. So there's this much. I'm going to knit all of this, I think, before I even switch to another color. And if I run out of yarn before I finish the pattern, I'm doing like the large size, I'm going to use this blue and this mohair. This was by Fable Knitwear, and it was one of the advent calendars from 2023. I have knitted, I think I had it in my previous video, shirt with it. But then I had leftovers, and these colors are so prominent that I don't. It's hard to mix them with something else unless I buy more from her line, and I'm not gonna buy more. Or maybe like later, but I said I wasn't gonna buy more yarn, so I have to use this. I am almost halfway into the scarf. So here it is. It took longer than expected. Like some of my colleagues who knit, they told me this was a really easy knit, and it is. What takes time is like counting and the increases of each row. And they told me to buy a one of those ring row counters. But again, I don't want to buy more things. So I was like thinking, okay, how can I keep track of it? I was just writing things down or putting it on my phone, but when I knit, I don't like looking at electronics. Maybe if I'm watching a movie, but it's my special time where I'm just disconnected. from the real world unless I'm like watching a movie or some other YouTube video, but it's like a disconnect. So then I thought about this. They're basically stitch markers, but for this particular pattern, you're supposed to do increases or decreases every, was it eighth row? So if I put this, I just thought about this now. If I put this on my work and I use each stitch marker to count the row I am in, then I can easily see like, oh, okay, this is the last row. I'm supposed to do an increase or decrease at this point. And then it's an easier way to do it without like writing it down. Like, I'll show you what I was doing. Like, I have the pattern, and then I had like these things here, writing a little stick for each row that I was in. It's annoying. Like, it prevents me from enjoying the work. So if I do it this way, then it's just literally on the scarf, and then I can pick it up whenever I want. I'm sure somebody has probably invented something like this, but here it is. My tips, inexpensive. You probably already have stitch markers. Just do it this way. Don't buy more stuff. What else? Now that I'm spinning my own yarn, I find that it's more difficult to follow patterns for the natural reason that your own hand spun yarn, it's different size and your gauge is probably different as well. So it's just harder to size things. Like well, it's harder for me. Like, I'm not an expert and there's a lot of trial and error. And even the yarn that I spin, it varies even when I try to make it the same. And this is because I've done all of my yarn in the antique spinning wheel. Like take this for example. Like, I did this with my antique wheel. And well, if you look closely, it's not uniform. It's not. And I like this. Like, I enjoy how this looks and I enjoy how it knits. But this means that when you buy a pattern, it doesn't necessarily come out how you expect it to. For many reasons. Like, it could just be my skill level. So what I do is I obviously adjust patterns to fit my yarn, but this means that I need to write things down. And my brain's a bit special. Like, I sometimes like to take different features of different patterns and make them into my own. So not only do you have like different yarn types and like different patterns and gauges and needles and all of that, like, you have that differs, plus you're like using your own yarn. So basically I'm making my own patterns that sometimes don't even fit how I expect them to fit, but I wear them and it's fine. But this means I need to write things down. And I have traditionally written everything down in this notebook. I've had this for years. It's a grid. It's a basic notebook. It's a grid notebook, and I even like to make my own patterns and designs for color work. Like, this is one of the first things I designed when I was learning how to knit. And I like to write my own notes and other interpretations of patterns. Like, writing patterns is hard. And understanding other people's patterns, I find it to be hard. Like, I can buy patterns, the same pattern, different languages that I understand, and they're still different. And sometimes I need to do it this way to understand what the author was trying to say, especially when it's like sweater with like puffed sleeves or like something unique with the pattern. It's not easy at all. And sometimes I need to write my own notes to understand that pattern. And it would be nice to like refer to that one pattern in my notebook without having to look at three different sources. Because I could buy patterns in two different languages, then look at a YouTube video for the technique, and probably like read somewhere else online like how it was actually done. Maybe I'm the only one struggling with this, but it's not easy. I don't think it's easy. Anyway, so I have this notebook for that, and I have a bunch of. Hold up, but why am I ranting? That was a rant. I'm ranting because YouTube is a wonderful place, and in my search for a journal, I discovered that there's another whole community, like a journaling community on YouTube. Wow. And some of those videos, like, they're really hardcore. Like, they're out there. But as I said, I'm not a complicated person. I've seen a lot of videos on the Traveler Company notebook, and the notebooks are really pretty. And I can see the appeal of why people put all different types of inserts in their notebooks. I like the idea that you can customize things. I like that. But from my own experience and things I've seen on other people's reviews, Japanese notebooks or like planners, they come in funny dimensions. I've been to Japan and I've bought a planner from Japan before, and it's really high quality. It is. But the size, it's not optimal. Maybe it has something to do with our writing style. Like perhaps Westerners need a bit more paper. But I find that their paper sizes are really narrow. And dimension is a criteria for me. And what I've seen from what they offer, it's not for me. I say this now, but this like could probably change like in a year or something. But anyway, it was interesting to look at, but it's at the moment not for me. I do have two notebooks that I bought almost a year ago, and they're intended for my personal journaling. But again, I thought, let's not buy more things. Like, I need to use what I have. So, let me show you what I have. Okay, let's look at these notebooks. I got these from Barnes and Noble during my trip to the States, and they're leather bound notebooks. They remind me of those Traveler Company notebooks, but they're like more normal sized. And well, the paper is already sewn into them, so with the exception of this one, you could basically take out the paper and then like put something else. But so then I'm thinking that I will probably use one of these for my knitting journal. And by journal, I mean that I will write my own patterns here and my own explanation of advanced knitting techniques and maybe other stuff. Like when I talk about journaling, I don't talk about like what I did during that day or anything like that. Like I guess it's more of my own pattern journal. Let's call it that. It's a pattern journal. So I think I will end up using this one. The only downside to it is that it's just basic blank paper. It's not gridded, and I feel like this is a downside for me, especially when you're talking about knitting and you're trying to like make your own colorwork design. And this is why I started to look into like what other knitting journals you can find. But again, like let's not buy more things. Like I have this and my current journal, like I'm not even halfway done with this, and I don't write on this every day. It's more like every now and then when I want to reflect on something, then I write it on here. And it occurred to me that it might be really nice to have a knitting journal that's a bit larger in leather because I think this will last for years, probably a lifetime. I don't imagine ever filling this whole thing. So having a cover like this that lasts longer, it appeals to me. It does. Like the notebook that I just showed you. This I've had this for over 10 years. And it's a thin notebook. Okay, it's larger in size, but I have not even filled it halfway. Now, when you have something like this, I could see this lasting me a lifetime. I think that's nice. So it's either this or this one. I haven't decided on that yet. And I did get inspired by the Traveler's Notebook, like how they design it. And they had like some interesting looking charms that they put on the band. But their band is plastic, like mine's leather, so I think that's nicer. I thought of putting, I have like some Moomin. I'll show you. Some of these Moomin small charms, like the ancient. Can you even see that? So putting something like that in the front. Like I have them and I don't use them, but this would be a bit more practical. I can put it like this. So I think I'm going to do that. And this was like what, $20 at the Barnes and Noble. I think if you get it, the Traveler's Notebook, it's like, I don't know, closer to 100 depending on what you get. This isn't bad quality at all. It's leather, and the paper, it's not bleached. Like modern paper, they bleach it to get like rid of the yellow color, but it's yellow. It even smells like those antique, or not antique, like those books like when I was in school. Does that make me old? Anyway, that's my plan for this year. I'm gonna. Oh, okay. I've made up my mind. I'm gonna use this one. Forget about this one. This one will be my personal journal. I'm gonna use this one for my knitting. And if I need grid paper, I'm just gonna be practical about it. I'm gonna have like grid paper all over the place. I'll just make my design there, and then I'll glue it on here. Don't make it more complicated than it is, right? That's that. All right, I think this video was more of a rant slash status update, and that's fine. That's how it goes. I mean, I can't knit something new each time I make a video. That's just not how it works. Knitting and handwork in general, it's time intensive. So probably the next time you see me, it will be an unboxing video. That's super exciting. I'm not trying to think about it, otherwise, I'm gonna get really impatient. So that's that. And I'll probably show you the Sophie scarf like once it's done. And I will also try to dye some of this with the onion peels. And maybe there will also be some progress on my old wheel as well. But we'll see. That's the thing about hobbies. You should just do as much as you want when you want to and when it makes you happy. See you next time.